Welcome to Talking Pictures, a podcast where we talk about movies, TVs, and other great stuff we like to talk about. I will be your host today, Brian, and I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, David. David, how are you?
I'm good, Brian. How are you today?
Good. David, we're here to talk about probably the most fun, exciting movie I've had to see in cinema this year. And it's the fourth installment of a franchise that can be compared to the Mission Impossible franchise on the basis of stunts. Mm-hmm. And that is the John Wick franchise. And we're talking about John Wick 4. We saw this in cinemas. We saw John Wick Parabellum, John Wick 3, in the cinema in 2019. That was when we both started going to cinema together.
It was one of the first films that we actually saw together.
One of the first. The first was Hellboy with David Harbour, but that's another story. So, this John Wick 4 was originally supposed to come out in 2022. In fact, maybe as far as 2021, when the Matrix...
They're supposed to release on the exact same day.
Yeah, I remember that. So it was pushed to 2022, and then I suppose 2023. And you know what? As much as I hated seeing that announcement date change, it was done for the better, because I feel happy having now walked at the cinema recently and watched it. Mm-hmm. I almost wish I went to Cineworld in Dublin to see this on the IMAX, because this was such a grand scale of the John Wick universe in this chapter, and I didn't feel the runtime.
No, it felt like it was the biggest of all four movies.
Yeah, definitely the biggest.
When you compare it to like the first one, which was done on a pretty small budget, mm-hmm. and I think even Keanu financed a bit of it himself, to then go from that, and it's slowly built each movie. This one feels the most big budget studio film, compared to like the independent action film that the first one was. Each
chapter does get bigger and bigger, like in budget, scale, characters, world building. It just gets bigger and bigger. Even the villain count gets bigger. Mm-hmm. And it started off in the first movie with just being a simple B-looking movie with a former action star saying, "What's this? Okay, maybe I know this actor. What's it? It's just another generic action movie, similar to the Accountant in that era." Like, based on the basis of watching trailers and action movies, we're all in the hype of superhero movies in that time, I suppose, action movies.
It could have easily been just another thing on his filmography.
Yeah, absolutely. But then we watched it, and then people took a liking to it. Mm-hmm. And we were subtly introduced into this world of the Continental, a world of assassins, a currency, a way of following law and order among assassins. I think what definitely this first movie did, and then kept on riding that high, was the love of dogs. Mm-hmm. David, we're dog lovers, and it's so good to see that represented in a franchise such as John Wick. It's almost second nature to think John Wick, dog lover.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole inciting incident for the first film.
Yeah,
is that these guys come in, they steal John Wick's car, and they kill his dog, and then like from there on out, everyone's like, "Why'd you kill his dog? Like, why'd you do that?" Like, it's just like, it's that simple. It's like, I can't believe you like. Why would you kill John Wick's dog?
And we've seen movies before where, people kill a dog. It's sometimes it's a passive sequence, and I suppose deep down in the void of John Wick's mind, that's what pulled him out, because that dog, as he explicitly explained what the dog meant to him. And it was the last embodiment of his wife. Mm-hmm. So, if you remember that scene where he's tied up and saying, "You give me your son so I can kill him, or I'll kill you too." And that was definitely a much grounded John Wick movie. Mm-hmm. And then I think at the end of the second one, it opened up the almost exaggerated possibility realm of this world because when John Wick broke the rules, killed someone on continental grounds, conducted business like they also have a way of using terms and words like
it's all very professional.
Yeah,
it's like
but
you
like,
don't conduct business.
Yes.
And what's the business that we're all in? Killing people.
But also like titles, harbinger, adjudicator, whatever Angelica Houston was in that Parabellum chapter, the director. Okay, but there's so many.
The marquee, the high table,
Yeah,
Mr. Manager, the concierge.
Yeah, there's so many titles that they're being fancy about it, but it's fine. It's fine in a sense. Yeah, it's fine, but it's also it's well fine. You know, like fine dining in that type of term. It's good, but the exaggerated realm of the John Wick universe was introduced when all the bystanders around the surrounding area of Grand Central Park, I think in New York, when everyone just froze because Winston gave the word that.
I think it feels like this. I suppose rather than talking about just kind of John Wick Chapter 4, we can talk about it as a whole as a franchise. It feels like throughout there is a layer that we're not seeing at all, and it feels like we're given breadcrumbs the entire time, and it feels like this is a whole huge world that we are seeing just a snapshot of. And it starts off in the first one with that, like, you coming into the hotel and they've got this currency. You're not quite sure like what value the currency has, and he just like slides a coin across the table, and like that's it. And then, as you said there in the second one, that they're able to hire out a whole park of like actors, and it's just like, okay, leave.
I think they're all assassins. They stand in guard, as opposed to actors. You know, I do agree with you in the sense that actors, because they're supposed to be normal. But where does the quantity of people like you and me living in our world versus and compared to the world of assassins in John Wick? Because how big is this world? We're only given it so much, and you know what? Maybe just keep it going that way. Maybe don't show us how big this world is, just because this is how it's essentially conducted itself 4 movies in. People fighting in the middle of public scenery, and bystanders paving no
attention to it whatsoever. I was going to say, because in the second film there's the scene with Keanu and Common walking through the like train station, and they're like shooting at each other, and there's no one batting an eyelid. And then in this one there's the whole fight in the nightclub. People just absolutely going for it, raving, people getting shot, attacked with axes, killed, and everyone's just like, just gonna bop around. And it's this crazy thing of, what I wanted to know was, do police not exist in this world? Because never once, I don't think, not from my memory, never once did the police show up, even though there's people being killed left, right and centre by John Wick.
There is, to answer that question, my understanding is that I think it can be either or in a mix of both. Half the people in when Common and John Wick, Keanu Reeves, it's funny that we say the name of an actor because we can't remember his character's name, but we say John Wick because, you know, Keanu Reeves is John Wick. They're shooting at each other and they're missing by inches and whatever. Even Mark DeCostas in John Wick 3, there were 2 in John Wick were about to go at each other, but they were broken off by a bunch of school children. Okay, so maybe it can be both and. Half the people in that room can be of the innocent world, the passive world, and the other half can be people part of the assassin world. And if an assassin may look at 2 people shooting silencers at each other and say, well, that's business, whereas passive people like me and you witnessing something like that would react naturally, because sometimes people do react normal, like when people screaming and such. So I do recall in the nightclub in the fourth one, we can delve into this later in this podcast, about people did screaming and running away from violence in scenes. Maybe they're all just high off their kite, you know.
Maybe
that could be a case. But
I like the idea that this world is much bigger than we even know about it, that maybe every room is full of assassins. Maybe everyone is in on it, and it's just like each individual person doesn't realize that everyone else is in on it. I think a great twist, you know, somewhere later down the line, is to find that John Wick's wife, who he left the business for, maybe she was also an assassin. maybe she was also part of the world and he didn't know about it. I think that would be an interesting
funny thing, when it comes to John Wick's wife, that really does feel like a real go bypass your head. Like it's a goal in John Wick, but I'm not gonna watch any John Wick movie or think about each movie in hindsight about him and the love of his wife. She's already dead by the start of the first one, and it starts off with the dog, and that's where it starts. It feels like they've not had any scenes with John Wick talking to his wife. It's only done in silent montage clips or scenes, or in photographs. She's a what was, and we don't even see flashback scenes of what was. And I think I would be taken out of it by, why are we seeing this when we could be seeing anything else? Because everything else we do see in a John Wick movie is what we want to see. And that goes from the easygoing storylines to the insane stunts, and the stunts just keep getting better and better. And I just want to run back to this one thing where you said, where are the police? Well, there was this one guy who was a friend of John Wick, and he's a cop, and he was in the first two movies for like one scene each, and like saying, John, hey, how's it going?
Oh, yeah.
You back? And then similar with John Lugas, I'm dyslexic, guys, please help me out.
John Leguizamo.
That's it. He had like one or two scenes in the first two John Wick movies. I'd like to see him come back. Where is he? He was good.
He's fixing his car. He said it might take me till Christmas, but he's going to fix the car. Well, I jumping back there, one last thing, just like you said there. I didn't think of it like this, but having her in scenes where she's not talking, she feels like a memory, which is all she is now.
Yes.
To John, that she's only in his memory, and there's no more of her.
Couldn't have said it any better myself, and I'd like it to keep that way.
Yeah.
Because I want it to stay like that. Just, it's not broke, don't fix it. Keep going in the way we're going with these John Wick movies, by how it's pretty much told in chapters. Really, the first movie doesn't end all that much in a cliffhanger, as opposed to the rest of them, almost, because it ends with him defeating the bad guy, walking away. He finds a dog that he can care for, walks off into the night. But then the second one starts off and it's, oh yeah, you didn't actually get his car back, and so he gets his car back, and that's how number 2 starts. And then, oh, John Wick's back. Well, he's in, so I'm gonna go reach out to him.
Yeah.
And then that's where we're introduced to more lifestyles and rules and law and order of the assassin world, where you have your marker, and you I did this favor for you, and you have to do this for me, and well, since I see that you're back in action, you're gonna do it for me. And then that furthers the cycle, and then it ends with him defeating the bad guy on continental ground, which ends with John Wick being on the run with a bounty on his head, with everyone looking to kill him. Pretty much the entirety of John Wick 3, and almost, even though John Wick 3 was repetitive in that sense, because it ends almost very much the similar way the second one ends, because I'm gonna kill them all. That's the end of the second one. I'm gonna kill them all. Well, that's pretty much how the third one ends as well, with a few betrayals and alliances. And I thought, okay, well, that was a little bit repetitive. And I thought, like, even though you're introduced to more characters and attack dogs and global international assassins and high table members, it still felt like we did not progress the furtherment of John Wick's escape from the assassin world and finding peace. So this John Wick 4 starts up a bit of time period in between movies. We know he's allied with Lawrence Fishburne, Barry King, such a great ally mentor, adjacent to Winston's ally mentor type of character. I like the fact that we got a scene with them two together, a few scenes with them two together. I like seeing veteran actors appearing on screen like that, and Winston's sort of seen as a betrayer in that sense, and I liked how they handled that. I didn't feel the need to be a need for revenge against Winston, and I know maybe you said to me that you thought maybe an acknowledgement would have been good, saying, you shot me off the roof. Well, my understanding is that's John Wick's rage is geared towards the high table, and continuing to talk about John Wick Chapter 4, the world, as we said, expands even more from introduction of old ways in Law and Order, and a multi-diverse cast of characters, and global way of conducting yourself in other countries like Japan and Paris, and still continuing in New York.
Different continentals.
Yes, pretty much. And we got Rome Continental in the second one. We got a Morocco one in the third one. So it just keeps expanding. And so everything I said in the last 5 minutes or so, it just hits home to me even more why I think this John Wick is the best.
I think that what you're saying there of like each movie kind of rolls into the next.
Yes.
I think that every movie has consequences for the following movie.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times when you have like franchises like this, the first movie is made and it can stand alone.
Yeah.
And then a second one comes, and then a second and third. And like the second one is written kind of in mind with, we're making this a trilogy.
Yes.
Whereas this whole series does a really good job of, like you said, the first one, he's retired, he comes back, he gets the revenge. The second one starts and it's like, now the whole assassin world knows that John Wick is back.
Yeah.
As a consequence of the first movie.
Yeah.
And so now he has to do this. And that movie then ends with John breaking the rules, and then it leads directly into the third one. And I think each one has like a knock-on effect of like really good storytelling that the first one, it can stand on its own, but because of the actions of the first one, that's what ignites the beginning of the second one.
And it's funny how that all played out, because when they did make the first John Wick movie, it was stood on its own, and that's how franchises should be done. Don't be universe in it all. Like, don't do it that, like, if anything, really, I know it's not really a universe because it's always been John Wick movies up until now. This is the way you should do a franchise. Focus on making a good movie and then see where you go from there. If you're successful, great. If not, boo-hoo. It's very successful. John Wick is a stampede in the Hollywood movie catalogues. And yeah, I really want to get into the characters of this John Wick movie.
Well, we can start talking about 4 now. Like, I suppose the end of 3 in having John Wick betrayed, and now he's on his own, and he's still excommunicated. Excommunicado, I love that word. And then
another fancy fine word.
Yeah, exactly. And then we lead
deconsecrated.
Exactly. The 4th one begins. We've left off 3 on a bit of a cliffhanger. John is excommunicated, and because of the actions that he has taken over the last couple of movies, the Continental in New York is deconsecrated and destroyed.
And Winston is excommunicado as well. And then Reddick dies.
Yeah. The concierge, played by Lance Reddick, is killed. Which is a big character death. He was a background, not so much a background, I suppose, a B character throughout.
Yeah, he definitely a supporting character, worthy of his own character posters.
But still, he was a good character, and it was a delight to see him every time.
And he was always there. He was in every movie. And it's just strange that Lance Reddick died in real life, and this movie happened. Strange in the sense that I until the scene was playing out, with the sand, even what are those things called? Hourglasses. When that was counting down, you're introduced to the villain of the movie. Probably the best villain of the John Wick movies, because not only is played by Bill Skarsgård, Bill Skarsgård. He's you get to understand what type of villain he is. He wants the glam and glory and the position of power, and he's a coward. He's afraid to get his hands dirty. He'll throw money and weapons to everyone else to do his dirty work, and he won't do it. But that plays into the climax of the movie that we'll get into soon. So we pretty much got our significant character death, because when it comes to character deaths, I don't count villains, because the villain is naturally naturally supposed to die in a sense. So Sharon is killed. I'm I thought Ian McShane throughout the movie played it very well. This is probably my favourite I've seen Ian McShane play as Winston. And from the get-go, John Wick's already in the desert shooting down members of the High Table, and he killed the leader that made him
the elder,
the elder who made him force him to cut his finger off.
And the whole plot, I suppose, of the movie is John is looking to get to the High Table. He's looking to either redeem himself or get his freedom.
Yeah, and essentially that's how it's sort of thrown at him with the aid of Winston and the Bowery King, is that he's been offered a proposition. Challenge the Marquis to a duel. If he wins, he will have his freedom. And, you know, with a couple of action journeys to get there, I'd like to talk about those first before we get to that point, almost chronologically as the movie plays out. We're introduced to two characters in that of Donnie Yen and Shamir Anderson. Donnie Yen, class. Shamir Anderson, cool. And it's like the good and the bad, the ugly between those two characters in John Wick. Like, these two guys are trying to kill John Wick for very different reasons. It's like Donnie Yen has a family aspect in play, and he has to kill John Wick or his daughter is in trouble, and he's blind, and that is inconsequential. That it doesn't matter. He's still well capable of taking out fools. And Shamir Anderson feels like a well capable guy looking to get a big score and looking to take out John Wick only if the price is right for him.
Which is a carryover from 3.
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier, that the previous movies' actions have the consequences later on, and that the bounty placed on John's head at the end of 2 and the majority of 3 is still active, and people are still looking to kill him.
It goes up to like 40 million.
Yeah, and Shamir Anderson, who plays Mr. Nobody, he's looking for the big score. He wants it to reach 50.
And I like that, like, you know, between John Wick, he's his own identity. Donnie Yen, as audiences, we know what he's like, but, you know, he's blind, he's an assassin, he's an old friend of John, he's got these other multiple aspects about him to define him as a character. He's even got history with Hiroyuki Sanada's Winston version in Japan.
Was the manager there?
We'll get to that in a minute, but Shamir Anderson, Tracker, Nobody. What's his angle? What's his identity as a character? Well, he's the one with the dog. He's and I also love this, and I like that they sort of made the point of this. He comes face to face with John Wick, and John Wick doesn't know him. Do I know you? I'm glad he didn't know him.
He's new on the scene.
Not everyone needs to know everybody, and it's almost like a young blood introduced him to it, and I like that. And he is a very cool character, and he doesn't seem to stand out in like a one-on-one fist fight. Well able to handle himself. He's definitely the least threatening of the 3.
Yeah,
but he has his own element, and like I said, he's the one with the dog this time around, and he's a foe to John Wick. Sometimes an ally, but sometimes a foe. And they kept on going back to that with this other big guy, the Marquis, Bill Skarsgård, butler, hitman guy, the big Spanish,
the brute. Yeah,
he's a few fights with John Wick, but then he's a few confrontations between Mr. Nobody, because when Marquis stabs Nobody in the hand, his dog's reacting. He says no, saying not to shoot his dog. So you notice that big guy was about to shoot the dog, because that dog's gonna bite you in the nuts at the end of the movie, you know. So like, that's gonna come to it. Well, like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. The Continental in Japan, that whole action sequence for like 30 minutes, and then you get that scene between the two master swordsmen, Donnie Yen, Hiroyuki Sanada, fighting off each other, and then you kind of thought it was going to play out like that. Donnie Yen was playing a more pivotal role, and Hiroyuki was playing that sort of wise master, old friend type of role, and them two knew each other as well. John Wick knew the manager, and Donnie Yen knew the manager. They've both equally different histories, and the manager has a daughter, and she was cool as well, and the manager is killed, and the daughter is let go. Donnie Yen says, I'll be waiting for you, and so that's a consequence for another continuation. And there's so many characters introduced that you think they have so much potential to have their own franchises or their own movies, even an ensemble. So many characters from this movie, from the last movie, so on and so forth. And you're already getting a ballerina spin-off, and that's a whole...
With Anna de Armas, isn't it?
Anna de Armas. Great casting, like that, looking forward to it.
It felt like this movie, of all of them previously, had the most plot.
Yeah. But funny enough, plot as in...
Character development and world... building out the characters and the relationships between characters.
Well, I was going to say gameplay. Because I said this is a video game movie. This is played out like a video game because the action scenes are just so extended and so long. Like the whole Continental in Japan action scene, that just is drawn out. Not to Jesus, come on, when's this gonna end? No, you're enjoying it. It's good. And I forget what's after that. Like what action scenes after that. But there's I think it comes to the nightclub one.
That would be the next big action scene.
Yeah, you're playing cards. You're introduced to a background or a Beeb villain played by Scott Akins. Killer is his name. They put him in a body suit and they have him play a German, and he's still well capable of putting up a fight with John Wick. And he's English, and he's got the sweat coming off his head. Like he's saying, dude, you've got like heart disease or something like that, but like he's still able, like, and then sort of played off as a joke, getting shot in the ass and then running away, but then he's able to fight John Wick later. Like that was a good scene, and then the music was good, and then the waterfalls, the visuals, the cinematography, the fights between the two, and then John Wick's after that trying to fight him and the goons, and then Mr. Nobody's with the dog fight, and then Donnie Yen is slicing fools with his sword. Like they're fighting, they're killing the same army of villains, and
they're not working together.
Yeah,
but they have a common enemy.
And what was the point of the sequence? Well, if you want to look at it in the sense like you didn't need the scene or whatever, well, maybe shut up. You don't care. I don't care.
Well, it was for John to get because the guy Scott Adkins' character had killed Natalie Tenya's father, and he was there to kill him so he could get his ticket.
But they wrote it like that. Why don't they just make it a more heartfelt, touching scene to write saying, okay, John Wick, you can come back in, but maybe they can just write that they have their own agenda against the high table as well, and okay, John, you can be part of our family. You have to go kill. You have to make sure you kill this person, or you need whatever, or maybe you have to kill this Marquis because he maybe could have killed the uncle, you know. That's why they wrote it. But you know, I guess it furthered the relationship between Tracker. I keep saying him Tracker, or I keep jumping back to Nobody. That's Shamir Anderson's character with the dog. He's listed as Tracker. He's listed as Nobody. If we say Tracker or Nobody, that's who we're talking about. Excuse me. So
I think it furthered the relationship.
It furthered the relationship, and it just continued the great action sequences and the choreography as well.
I think that's something that we need to shine a light on throughout the whole movie, is that these big action set pieces and the choreography, the stunts team, exceptional work.
Different to the stunts done in the Mission Impossible franchise. That's more of a grand mechanical engineered type of stunt setup, whereas this is definitely more one-on-one, human-based, personalized choreography.
Like, you have to applaud the director, Chad Stileski,
as a stuntman himself.
That he was a stuntman, and so I'd say he probably knows what looks good. And I think if you watch any of the John Wicks and you compare those to other modern day action movies, just watch the editing and the fights. John Wick, it kind of harkens back to like old Jackie Chan movies where they just have the camera on the scene and they just let the fight play out. Whereas modern day action sequences are like, oh, someone throws a punch and just before the punch lands, it cuts to a reaction shot of the person getting the hit. That you don't actually feel the impact of the punches. Whereas with John Wick, you're watching the whole sequence and you're seeing him fight maybe 3 or 4 guys all at the same angle before the camera cuts away to another shot of him fighting 3 or 4 people. So you're getting this real like like you said there, you feel the impact and the choreography. He's giving the choreography a chance to shine and being like, look at how much effort we put into choreographing these fights, and I think that it's just fantastic.
I like that you're saying that, because it does not only shine a light on stunts, but it does shine a light on the work of blocking and the amount of skill someone like Chad the director has, because how can you map that out and then remember how it's done and played out? Like, because it's easy to sort of choreography the scene, the action, but then to put a camera there as well, you know,
because you're moving the camera around at different angles to how the actors are fighting each other.
You want to talk about moving the camera?
Yeah, I do. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I do want to talk about that, because I wanted to say that I think these movies have a difficult challenge ahead.
Oh yeah,
and it's that John Wick as a character has entered the cultural zeitgeist of, okay, John Wick is unkillable. He is the top dog. He is Baba Yaga. He is the main guy. Like, everyone is afraid of him.
Yeah.
So how do you keep him fighting anyone interesting? And that was a problem that I had throughout the film. And it's that at one point in the franchise, they introduced these bulletproof suits.
Yeah.
So there's sequences.
Third movie, or second movie.
I think it was the second movie. I feel like I remember it being the second one, but I could be wrong. But there are sequences where there's two characters with bulletproof suits, and so they're just holding like the waist, like the coat, the blazer,
ducking their head
underneath it and shooting at each other, and they're both hitting each other, but there's nothing happening. That to me is very uninteresting, and I think that in those sequences where if two characters are bulletproof, get rid of the guns altogether and just do something else entirely.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be throughout all of the movies unnamed henchmen who have to fight John Wick.
Yeah.
And maybe it's unnamed henchman number 50 is finally going to get him. No, obviously not. We know that it's going to be, if anyone's going to get John Wick or damage him, it's going to be
a named character
who is, you know, has some kind of, I suppose, quirk about them, or is visually interesting.
Funny you say that. We'll get to that later.
But I think that something that they did incredibly well this time around is that sequence, which is it's a one-shot sequence that flies above the scene and plays out as like a top-down shooter.
A bird's eye or a God's eye view, where you can see, you're not seeing like the roof, you're seeing the pillars at the top of the walls breaking into the room sections,
and you can see rooms that John can't see, and you can see enemies coming at him. And I think that was so incredibly innovative, that you are changing the way that we see the action, that even though it is full of these unnamed guys, and John Wick has a big fuck off gun that shoots incendiary rounds, that because that is so different, it's something new visually for us to see, and it just changes the way. I think that was fantastic, and I think that was a great way to innovate and like do something different. And I think if every movie tried to, okay, we've seen all this before, how do we make it look good? How do we do something different?
It definitely did look good, and it started from the stairs as well.
It was a one shot that like started out like just as a traditional shot,
traditional panning shot almost.
And you just were like, okay, oh, hold on a minute,
you're going,
whoa, hold on a minute, and you're just like, oh, where is this taking me? I don't know where it's taking me, but I like this. And it just holds on it, and it, like, the choreography for that, the blocking of it, the camera movement, the effects,
the dead guys or half dead guys still crawling, but you think he's still crawling, he's still alive, you know, and John Wick still like he's running to the edge of the frame, and because the camera is only keeping up to a certain degree, because it will center on him later as the bird's eye shot, and they're doing a lot of moving and running and blowing up. And even the dog was there as well, and nobody towards the end of the shot was also introduced into fighting and shooting John Wick. And I don't know, does it pan down or does it cut?
No, it cuts. It starts out as a whole one shot, then it cuts to Mr. Nobody, and then when it comes back, it does another.
It does a second one.
It does a second one. It's almost like a continuation. You could take out that shot in the middle, but it was obviously they couldn't do a full one shot based on the scene, but they do it again, and it just visually looks incredible. The effects look great. The stunts are great. It's what pushed the movie from being really good to great.
I still bet this was quite a cheap movie compared to a lot of other movies.
I think it was doubled the budget from the third one. Wow. I think I heard that somewhere.
Really? Okay. Well,
but it felt that way.
But now it did have quite an extended cast, like a lot of characters,
and it felt bigger. It did feel bigger
and it was longer. It was longer.
It was significantly longer. It's 2 hours
45 minutes.
45. Yeah, it was long.
Didn't feel it, and I do know what you're saying about who are all these guys. Like, come on, they're not gonna kill John Wick. You know what? I'd like to add to that, but then put a bow on it. John Wick was the Baba Yaga. How many guys were scared of him in the first movie? It's like, your son stole this guy's car. It's like, so? It was John Wick's car. Oh. And so he's looking to reason with John and, like, you know, buy him out. And he was the boogeyman. And they keep calling him the Baba Yaga. But, you know, if it wasn't anywhere in the second movie, it was definitely the third movie when all these armoured... military looking armoured nameless faceless guys just kept on coming into the Continental, and you know, because that was established, I'm fine with a horde of 50 men coming at John Wick throughout the movie, trying to kill him, failing miserably and easily, and getting hit in the face by nunchucks like 10 times and not a bruise to show for it. But that's fine. Because that was already established as exaggerated setup. Like, he falls off the roof of the last movie, and the same happens to him again this time around. And
there's a lot of falls in this movie. I don't know if you noticed. There's a lot of stunt work falls.
You see, so that doesn't bother me at all. I've come to accept that John Wick's able to take out guys, and I'm not going to be worried. I'm going to be enjoying the stunt work. And when it comes to a named guy or girl who is got a bit of a quirk or an element to the character that could maybe suggest they can take out John Wick, well, we do have a few characters, but one that excels to the top of that list is Donnie Yen. From something simple as to grabbing the card off the silver platter tray, like, he hits the bottom of it to find where it is, and he hits the bottom of it, and then he grabs the top of it, like, you know, it's like, get out of my way, and then he brushes his hands across the cards to feel the braille, I think, because you know, blind, can't see, and he reads John Wick, and you see he's got a history with this guy, and you know, I fell for it, and Donnie Yen, he looked cool, he sounded cool, I liked him in this movie, and he was great, and he did have that quirk with him, and I don't want to get into it just yet because we're not there yet at the end. Clancy Brown was also class. He had a suave and respect to the rules. And
another mysterious character who was a representative of the high table.
And I like that there was a Mysterio. Because you see him walking in, big overcast black jacket and the hat. And he's got a scar on his eye and he's got a missing finger like John Wick. And this guy's been through some stuff. You could do so much with that character by what little they established of him. And yeah, I kind of knew based on the trailer alone he was going to be that type of character. I kind of got that vibe from him. And he called the Marquis out on his shit for wanting to kill John Wick so he wouldn't make it to the duel on time. The duel that he nominated Donnie Yen to stand in his place so he wouldn't be at risk of dying. What an obvious thing for a character like him to do, as already established. You know, he'll come at you with a tank to a baseball fight. You know, like, and he's just a coward, and he's just a little weasel, and he was what Winston so accurately called him arrogant. So we'll get to that in a minute. But back to the fights where, you know, John Wick's making his way up to the steps, and the radio broadcast of all these assassins in Paris trying to take him out and still failing, and you know, that was another extended gameplay sequence. And then he gets to the top, and I thought that Spaniard wasn't dead because it didn't look like it didn't look like a satisfying death. He kicks John Wick halfway down back to the bottom of the stairs. He just made his way up, and then he falls back down again. That is the stunt of the movie that I want to know. How did they do that?
Falling all the way down the stairs.
All the way down, and then all the way down again. Because that was a one take, uncut, tracking shot. All the way to the bottom. And that looks like it was shot on location. It doesn't look like a set. The stairs don't look like foam. How did Keanu Reeves or a stunt double fall down, rolling backwards, constantly rolling down? How did they do that? That is the stunt of the movie I want to know how to do. How? Because, like, I'm sorry, you're going to crack your head open. How did they do that?
Yeah.
Any listeners paying attention to this podcast, do you know how this happened? If you've got any info on how they executed that, please send us an email on talkingpicturespodcast1@gmail.com, please. Thank you. Back to the scene. Donnie Yen comes and he says, John, you need to get up and you need to go back up there. And them two men, they make their way back up again. 3 minutes to spare before sunrise to make it to the duel. And then, of course, naturally, you have them, Donnie Yen and Keanu Reeves, and Tracker is there as well. He comes back to make that notable return with his signature weapon, the shotgun, taking out some fools. Took out the Spaniard, actually. Saved
him and John have a kind of an understanding,
because John Wick saved his dog from getting shot, and you know,
and like we said at the start, John Wick, dog lover.
Yeah, 100%. And so Tracker, he comes up to the Spaniard and says, "You hurt my puppy." Blows his head off. Dog takes a piss on him. And then Donnie Yen and John Wick make their way up, and they're knowing that they're the ones who's gonna have to duel each other to the death. And even that little scene in the church saying, John, if it's between you and my daughter, you're going to die. And like, you know, John, like he's just looking for peace at the end. And he had that little scene where loving husband, was that what it was?
That's all he wanted, on his
tombstone, because the gentlemen were talking about what they would have on their tombstone. So yeah, it was all nicely done. I liked how it all played out in the end, and being leading up to this point. Nobody sits back by the bench at the side like us as the audience, cracks open a beer and watches the scene unfold. And pistols at dawn. Marky, sneezy little. Ooh. He was a good villain, and I hated him.
That's the sign of a good villain, is someone that you can hate. And
it's you like to hate, but you still don't like. Whereas any other villain in the movie, well, anyway,
I wouldn't have said there was in any of the other ones really more like as traditional of a villain as him.
Yeah, but he was done very well. He was done very accurately and consistently well. And
I was delighted to see Bill Skarsgård covered in makeup, because he's iconically Pennywise in the remake of It and It Chapter 2.
He was a good actor before that. I think Pennywise just made him popular.
Yeah, but I think in a lot of the things that he's in, he is under makeup in some aspect.
He's going to be under makeup again in Nosferatu.
Exactly.
But funny enough, he's got 2 action movies coming up in The Crow and Boy Kills World. Yeah, those are 2 action movies that he's going to be silent or under makeup. So
it's good to see him as himself.
Yes.
And play a villainous role that way.
So the 30 paces, and I thought they were going to do something with the steps because they're walking on gravel, but then there's these like wood boards where you can hear their feet step on, and you thought maybe that was going to play into it, but I don't think it did. And so the 2 men fire at each other. Keanu Reeves fires at Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen fires at Keanu Reeves.
They both hit, but not a fatal wound.
So not fatal wounds. Whether they hit or miss, definitely non-fatal. And so they step forward 10 paces. They're reloaded with one weapon again, and Winston says, well, before they fire, of course, Winston says, just have fun out there, knowing that if John Wick dies, Winston is also executed because he's his sponsor, just like the Marquis was Kane, Donnie Yen's sponsor. Marquis, having failed to have all of Paris kill John Wick before he made it to Sunrise, and this is just Paris, not including the rest of the movie. He says to Kane, the blind man, don't forget about your daughter, or think about your daughter, fuck off. It's like Donnie Yen, he's class in this movie.
Like he needs the reminder of what's at stake. He's like, I know, like, go away, fuck off. But that arrogance comes to Bill Skarsgård's comeuppance, because
when they fire again, nothing happened, and so they reload again. It was again a bit close because Donnie Yen shot in the chest. Sorry, not the chest, in the stomach. But Keanu Reeves, he shot in the arm and he shot in the shoulder.
All non-fatal wounds, so they have to get closer and closer.
And when they do get closer and they're reloaded again, one bullet per shot, Winston, like, you almost seen a bit of like anxiousness in him. Just kill him, And so they get close, and I love how they shot it. It's a wide shot for two men seeing. You don't see like over the shoulder or up close type of shot almost. I like how it's done. And John Wick is shot in the gut, and John Wick's on the ground. Okay, well, it's happened so quick you don't really know how it's gonna play out. So let me tell you what I thought as the scene unfolded. John Wick's on the ground. Winston's Tyrion Lannister when the mountain kills Pedro Pascal, and Donnie Yen, knowing what he did, the Marquis sees this as an opportunity to ride on the high and claim the glory of having killed John Wick. He's all excited. He's getting a boner about. He goes over to Kane. In his own fancy words, in the traditional word of speaking assassins, I want to kill John Wick. I want to step back in. I'll take your place, Kane. Yeah, Donnie Yen, I'll take your place. Yeah. And so Kane, whether this was planned or not, he says, am I free and my daughter? Are they free? Yes, both of you have your freedom. And so, okay, great. I suppose that little sense of security is stabilized. He goes up to John Wick, the Marquis does, and he's gonna shoot him. I actually don't know what's gonna happen here, because in the moment I'm watching the scene and I'm thinking seconds prior as the scene plays out, and I'm not thinking seconds ahead of what's gonna happen. And it was done very well, because you see Winston laugh and you think, oh, is Winston gonna sort of like distract him in a way to maybe stand in, maybe sacrifice himself almost, or to insult the Marquis again, like one last Winston hurrah. No, he does. You arrogant prick. He didn't shoot. Oh! Consequences! And he shoots his head off. John Wick blows the head off the Marquis because he did not shoot Donnie Yen. Villain defeated. John Wick has his freedom.
Yeah.
Clancy Brown puts that out there.
Everyone gets their happy ending. Winston reinstated. John Wick gets his freedom. Kane gets his daughter. Got him and his daughter's freedom. And it just feels like it's just a big sigh of relief. Like all four films have been leading to this. I'm like, finally.
And I love that reaction of Tracker sitting back there, like,
laughing. Yeah,
that shit's fucking good, man. Like that was so good, and the reaction in the audience in the cinema as well. Everyone laughed at it, or everyone like, oh my god, like, and then they laugh with the Tracker as well, and then Clancy Brown as the Harbinger announces the reinstations and the declarations. It's the morning, but it's like, good afternoon, gentlemen, or goodbye. Puts the hat on, strolls off. Okay, that's a nice. And, well, what did you think in that moment up there?
I think I was similar to you up until when he went to claim his right to kill him. I was like, oh, it's not that simple. We're not going to see him go over and kill John Wick. Then I'll walk away. But as soon as he was like, I want to kill him, I was like, John didn't shoot. I felt it in my bones. I was like, maybe I didn't know it, but I felt it. I was like, oh, please tell me John didn't shoot.
I just couldn't think myself at that moment of time.
But yeah, and then it wraps up nicely in terms of John's story, whether he is another character, whether he is the main character again, or if that's the book closed on John Wick as a character.
And why would it be closed?
Yeah, well, I mean, he we see him finish the fight. He goes down the steps, and then we see a shot of his grave, and he's buried beside his wife with the words of loving husband. Which is exactly what he wanted. With
Winston and the Barry King watching over his grave, and them, where do you think he is? And Barry King laughs. John Wick, he says, Winston, will you take me home? He said, of course. I think it's quite obvious that it's open-ended.
Mm-hmm. I assumed that it would be this is where John Wick is, and that's where everyone will be told where he is, but he's actually alive and he's fine. Yeah. But we didn't get that. We just got the shot of the grave scene. I would have thought that we would see maybe him in the back against a tree or something like that, just that John Wick's still out there, but to everyone else, he's dead. And John Wick, the Baba Yaga, is dead, but John is alive somewhere else.
And maybe we'll get a few, because we're about to get a Continental prequel series of, it's only 3 episodes, so it'll be extendedly long episodes, and then we're going to get the ballerina. So maybe we'll get a few more content from the John Wick universe before we'll get a John Wick 5.
I don't think I would need a John Wick 5.
You know what, I can agree with you in that, but I think it's just that riding high, because it's ended now the way it is. He's got his freedom. No one's able to come after him. He's out again, and he's at peace. He's at peace.
Either way, whether he's alive or dead, he has freedom. His freedom is he's no longer under the table.
Yes. And then there was that post-credit scene where Hiroyuki Sanada's character, the manager of the Japanese Continental, his daughter,
comes back for her revenge.
But it cuts to black, because Onien's about to see his daughter, and what a nice moment. He's got flowers, It's almost as if he's got peace or freedom, but no. Consequences. And so maybe there was a moment where he sensed her coming, but whoever that will play out, I don't know. I'd like to see, you could get a Donnie Yen spin-off, you could get a Nobody spin-off, you could get an ensemble where Halle Berry's the lead, and I don't know, maybe Tracker can be there, maybe they can bring back Common, maybe they can bring all these characters back. The director from the Ballerina, she's gonna come back in the Ballerina movie. Winston is coming back in the Ballerina movie. I think John Wick's going to make an extended cameo in the Ballerina movie. Unfortunately, Lance Reddick will not, but he was supposed to. But I'm looking forward to taking a break to the John Wick franchise and just seeing where we can go from now. Come on, it was 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23. It was 4 years since part 3 and when we got part 4. So, it's good to take a breather, and God, this deserves every amount of success that it gets. And I just love, this is my favourite movie of the John Wick franchise, my favourite cast of characters. I love every bit of it. And I think if there's only one thing I would like to maybe change or add or alter or make more use of, it's that of the pit bull dog that John Wick has. Because he's only in 2 scenes, that dog. It's when the Barry King has his first scene, and he says, "You ready, John?"
And taking him for a walk,
yeah. And then at the end, and at the graveyard scene, we even got a shot of the dog looking at the grave, and I suppose it's nice that the Barry King has the dog, because he's a good. I like the Barry King quite a lot. I think he's a great character. But I thought maybe if we just got maybe more scenes of John Wick and the dog, maybe when he was going back to hide in the the abandoned subway station. No, it wasn't abandoned because of the train. He met Winston and the Barry King just before his duel, just before the Paris gameplay sequence. Maybe he could have had the dog there. They could have had the dog in the boat. The dog, the pit bull dog was there. He was there. He was, that was his go-to for taking a break. His dog. And I suppose I maybe could have done with a little bit more of that. And if he is alive, why isn't the dog with him?
I never felt like the dog was his.
Well, okay, I like that because he never named him, and he was always, trying to get the dog somewhere safe. But what does the dog mean then for John Wick? Like it's not his. Well, the dog loves him. that scene where he's sitting in the hotel and the dog runs in at him, starts licking him all over the place, and he says, "Stay," you know. Like,
because the first 3 movies take place in no more than a week.
Yeah.
From first to the end of 3, because obviously 2 and 3 take place within an hour of each other, and the first one depends on how long he was home before DeSantos came and spoke to him. But
I think those 4 days.
Yeah, I don't feel like they had developed much of a connection. That he had took him home with the intention of that.
I don't know. I think maybe I just wanted a bit more with that. Like, I was satisfied with every single character in this movie. Even Tracker's dog. He was sort of... There was a CGI done to him, like jumping over the cars and attacking people and coming out of the shadows like a monster.
Yeah, dudes. You kind of wanted that relationship between John and the Pitbull.
Yeah.
That they would work together almost.
Well, I didn't want that. No. I didn't want the dog to be attacked. I want the dog to be something of love. You know, something of a mind easer. I guess I just wanted more of a bow or a cherry on top with that. And no, I liked either way, and I feel happy that the Barry King has that. But you know, it's just like, oh well, the dog he is the dog, so you know, he's fine. I guess it's not making me put it from 5 stars to 4.5. You know, but that 4.5 is not good. It's not good enough. It's better than 4.5, but because of this, it's not quite 5 full. It's
I know what you mean. Yeah,
you know,
that would just push it over the edge.
That would just. I think it's my favorite movie of the year. You know, yeah. I think it's my favorite movie of the year so far. This was a great movie, David.
I enjoyed it. And I'd highly recommend, if you were a fan of the first 3, to watch this one. I know we've spoiled it all, but hopefully you've agreed with us. If you didn't agree with us, or if you have any other points or anything like that you want to let us know about, please comment on our Instagram, or as Brian said earlier, just to contact us via email. You can send in your questions.
Yes, and some more questions or comments or curiosities on our Talking Pictures Podcast 1@gmail.com email. And if you want to follow us, if you haven't already, on Instagram, Talking Pictures Pod, please do so. Please give this podcast episode 5 stars. We are worthy of it. If you like this, please stay tuned every Wednesday for more topics between myself and David about love and hate. No, just love on movies and TVs. David, this concludes this episode of Talking Pictures Podcast. Thank you, good sir.
Thanks, Brian.